Welcome to today's episode in the Future of B2B Digital Marketing podcast. We are diving deep into the transformative world of personalization in B2B marketing. In today's digital age, customers are inundated with content, and personalization has emerged as a guide for businesses to create meaningful connections. So today we will explore the evolution of B2B marketing, the pivotal role of data in crafting tailored experiences, and the nuances of community engagement in a B2B context. So we are joined here by a panel of experts who will share their insights, challenges, and strategies in personalization to drive B2B success. So let's start with a quick round of introduction. Firat, please.
My name is Firat. I'm based in Manchester. I'm working in Apadmi as digital marketing executive. Just recently started into company. So it's a B2B software company, and I'm looking forward to it.
Hi, I'm Hannah. So I work in social and digital marketing for Consultancy, the consultancy firm that focus on kind of construction, infrastructure, economic development, and strategic communication. So quite interesting projects that we're working on.
Hi, I'm Avishek. I'm the head of growth at Disciple Media, which is a community building platform which helps small to large size businesses to build their communities on apps as well as websites, and how they can leverage that. Thank you.
I'm Maria. I'm based in London, and I work for Toluna, which is a market research and consumer insights company. So I've been working with them for 2.5 years, and it's a really great place to be because we can basically do a lot of research, market research, and produce our own content, so our own reports. And we can do really, for a marketer, it's really an interesting job to have when you can actually have access to content as easily as it is. So yeah, really happy to be here.
My name's Tom. I'm the founder and chief executive of Adzact, which is a B2B ad platform.
And I'm Joaquin Dominguez. I'm head of marketing also at Adzact, and we are hosting this podcast. So let's start with the first theme is the evolution and the complexities of B2B marketing. So B2B marketing is constantly under transformation. So gone are the days with that B2B marketing were rational, targeting just a specific pain points without delving into emotions. So B2C for the longest time held the monopoly on leveraging emotions in communications. But today, the distinction between B2B and B2C is very nebulous. And because at the end of the day, we are targeting individuals, right? So because this continuous blur, we have unique challenges and opportunities, and of course personalization has become vital in this landscape. So I will give you an open question. So how do you believe personalization is reshaping the way businesses communicate in B2B?
Go for it, Maria. Yeah.
Okay. So I will start. So I think obviously when you talk about personalization, we assume that we know we know in terms of funnel where people are, because we can see more or less how they are evolving through sales funnels. And the implications would be that we can deliver the right content personalized to, I don't know, can be persona, can be sector. However, we also know that a lot of the research that people do is done on social, is done on dark social, and you can't really tell. So on the one hand, the theory says that, yes, we have a funnel, we have people going through the funnel like seamlessly and evolving from consideration through the different stages. But in practice, what we see is that people make decisions more randomly. They consult their peers, they follow, like you had recently mentioned, the people we follow on social, sorry, and then they come up with a clear idea of who they want to consider, and they might go straight into a website and fill in a form and ask for a demo. So these are the two things. And so you need to personalize the content by knowing your actual customer, I think. And maybe you won't be able to target that customer at the different stages, and seeing, like delivering neatly the content that you think they might want through ebooks or blog posts or whatever. And you might need to be much more active on social and build your brand and build a relationship with the community, and then that's your personalization. That's you're targeting a certain type of persona. It's a person. Ultimately, they might be a part of a collective decision in the future, and you need to consider all these things, in my opinion.
I agree. And that access to content. So do you believe that people should have access to content openly, or do you still believe in the era of the gated content?
No,
You need to get something in to
in return. No, because I think it doesn't work like that. You don't, maybe 10 years ago, you could create an ebook that was original to your sector. But nowadays, that has to be like a really tricky thing to do, unless you're proposing something that's really new, addressing a new or a fairly new need in the market. But for most companies, they might feel they're new, but I'm sure there are already 20 ebooks about that particular topic, and they're coming late to the game. So it's very tricky. I don't believe in gating content.
So I have a slight different opinion on that. So jump on in. So in my experience and perspective, I can say it's kind of like a mixture of between gated content and ungated content. It's kind of works. How you can ask, it's kind of mixing the lead gen efforts and also with the demand gen, of course, providing value and creating something unique is an kind of like important point. But at the same time, it's just kind of like in the lead gen perspective, you shouldn't, like as a company, you shouldn't go if someone has downloaded something and right away just like reaching out to them and saying that, okay, yeah, you downloaded this and let's have a chat kind of things. They might be low intent, they might be not interested, they might be researching. So I agree on Maria's point in having a unique, valuable asset, that creating an asset and sharing that with the ungated format. But at the same time, it's sometimes valuable to capture the attention and the understanding the real interests of some people and saying that, okay, these group of people actually sign up for this, rather than thousands of people could visit your website. Then you can actually personalize your ads and kind of like having a different structure of retargeting and kind of going a deeper down of personalization in that area as well. Hope that's clear.
Just to as well, I think I agree more with Firat, purely because I feel like it all ultimately depends on the value that the content brings. And if that content is highly personalized for that, depending on the journey of that particular customer or lead, I think it adds value. And again, agreeing with Firat, I think if we are able to that helps to narrow down the total lead volume. And also if you have a structured way of nurturing those content, even if it's a top of funnel or middle of funnel lead who is not probably going to convert in the next 6 months, but that helps to build a pipeline further down the line, knowing that you are actually building a relationship with that kind of audience who actually somewhat fit your customer personas or ICPs, etc.
Yeah, just adding to that as well, I think it's all about balance within reason, as in we can't have everything gated, but similarly to what Maria said in terms of effectively, if somebody can find the content from a Google search, then it's probably not worth it being gated because it wouldn't be able to stand out enough. But I know at Copper, it's something that we invest in is we produce attitude reports, and they're basically us generating our own data for areas that don't already exist. So we know that it gives us a unique selling point and we produce the content for the community, but also that is beneficial to us and the projects that we work on. The one thing I'd say is at the moment we don't use gated content, but because it is a unique selling point for us and a way that we differentiate between our competitors, there is a real opportunity there for it to be gated, because at the moment everyone could be stealing our ideas thanks to our lovely report. And actually part of the reason I'd want it to be gated is not necessarily from a getting customers perspective, because we're not actually selling anything. So we don't typically have a sales funnel like the rest of you may do. So it would be about collecting the data and contacts to build out our kind of database system so that we've got other avenues to push marketing when relevant. So again, similar to what Firat said in terms of we wouldn't be reaching out to say, let's have a chat this week or next week. And we would be using that to kind of build a bigger picture based on future comms that we did send out as to they've downloaded this report, they've downloaded this, they've opened this email, and we would build the picture bigger that way.
Is that because you have very, very long sales cycles and really massive like contract sizes? So it's like it's not so much selling as just developing longer term relationships where people might come back and back and back? Or
yes, absolutely. So we stand in a little bit of a confusing area, and like you were saying earlier, in terms of B2C and B2B having a bit of a blur, I'd actually argue that we're maybe business to stakeholders, and we're kind of pulling in together both businesses and customers within that. So a lot of what we work on are huge infrastructure projects, and they could range from a 3-month lead period to 7 years, from consultation all the way through to kind of construction. So we're from a very different angle. We're not always after kind of customers and sales. So a lot of our work will be with the likes of National Grid and National Highways. So they're not projects that come around on a weekly basis anyway. So maintaining those relationships is really important to us. And that's why those reports add so much value.
And there's no way to do, because I mean, some of you might have a free trial or something. That's obviously the ultimate form of gated content in a way, because it's obviously generally gated, and it is, you know, it's kind of very bottom of funnel content, hopefully. But you obviously can't do that, Hannah. It's more about generating these longer term relationships. So you kind of have to gate something, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, especially with attitude reports, those are kind of our key things that we should be gating. But there's other pieces that obviously we put out that are kind of more thought leadership based, which everyone has got their own kind of stance on. So there'll be people putting things out there and it's just from a different angle. So that's kind of more opinionated thought leadership style, rather than kind of hard facts and data that we've gone out of the way to kind of curate. So yeah, definitely kind of where we stand.
Yeah, definitely interesting the gating content. But let's move on the agenda. And Hannah, you have a passion for creativity, and so please tell us how do you bring, or how do you see the role of creativity in B2B marketing and in personalization?
Yes, so when it comes to creative, I think when you work in marketing, and especially from a social media angle, it's probably the biggest bugbear that we all have. And we're always fighting to kind of get creative aspects pushed out there and getting sign off for them. So yeah, definitely an interesting one from a B2B side. But I would say creative is really the driver for a successful campaign, because in order to get somebody to read the report that you've written that's kind of data heavy, maybe thought leadership focused, you have to have something to get them there in the first place. So whilst a catchy heading might do that, I think the creative plays like a massive part in that. So I think as well, obviously noisy kind of world of social media, but digital in general, and there's so much choice out there for people, is that users are looking for more unique and engaging experiences. So it's a bit similar to kind of how we've all evolved over the last few years from like corporate office attire into more casual clothing, or from kind of 5 days a week in the office into hybrid working or remote working. I think that's kind of the same in the marketing world, as in people are ready for something refreshing in the world of business. People are kind of becoming bored and they're gaining fatigue over corporate reports that don't have infographics, don't make the content easy to digest. So yeah, animations is something that we're kind of investing a bit more time in, but just finding new ways to present things. Because I think another thing that often happens with creative is we create kind of templates and then we stick to it because we've got this cool template and it looks good and it makes life easier, and it's more efficient. But actually maintaining that creativity and making sure that there's something different each time is really important. So whilst we use data-driven strategies, and we won't ever forget the data, I think it is really important to have that two-prong approach in terms of creativity on the one side and data on the other, and making sure you're kind of using them through all avenues. And then obviously the point of creativity is to, one, capture attention, two, evoke emotions, but also give us the opportunity to differentiate amongst our competitors. So yeah, hopefully that answers.
Yeah, definitely. And Maria, you mentioned before the importance of understanding your audience. So how do you tailor your content, and how do you to be creative and resonate with, because your company has different audiences, regional audiences. You're present in LATAM, in Europe, etc.
Yeah, so I cover LATAM, Middle East and Africa, and Spain and Italy. So it's very different types of audiences, and also we have been in these markets for different amounts of time. For instance, in Italy, we've been there for quite a long time, so we have a different type of relationship with our clients. And then in other markets, we are prospecting and
And you're doing
exploring.
B2C and B2B advertising, right?
No, we
Okay.
just do B2B, just B2B.
Okay.
So obviously in these different markets, and to the point of gated content, because in my previous answer I was quite kind of categorical, because the question was yes or no, and I didn't balance my answer, because the question was, what do you believe? And that's what I believe. But for instance, in the Middle East, we gated content works well for our content, because there's more of a lack of content specific to that region. And we, because we do a market research, we can touch on countries and markets that are relevant, and we kind of know what people want to know about. So we can use reports that are quite relevant, and in those cases we might gate that content, and for a month, for instance, while the data is very new, and then we might ungate. So obviously we have different approaches. In Europe, for instance, in Spain, gated content doesn't work that well, maybe because there's just too much, and it's really hard, regardless of creative, to get the attention, to capture the attention. So sometimes our campaigns don't deliver in that area as well as in other parts of the world. So it's very, very different. And we try to tailor our reports, obviously, not just visually, but in terms of the actual content. So for instance, we have global barometer, a global consumer barometer that we do every quarter in 18 countries. And so, for instance, the data we collect for the Middle East or for LATAM, what stands out might be very different from what stands out for the US or the UK or Germany. So then obviously the creative that goes into those highlights report, because we have the global report and then the regional report. So it's a really like and especially from my team that we cover different countries, we really have to kind of tailor everything, not just because we would in terms of, let's say, imagery, etc., but also because the content ultimately it's slightly different, although coming from the same overall global initiative.
Yeah, Firat, you also had some challenges focusing on specific regions, different tones of voice.
So yeah, I'm actually curious as well. I want to ask Maria first if you're creating kind of like a master report and distributing or localizing that to the different regions, or you're creating something like almost like new unique reports in different regions. So just like curious to understand as well on top of your point, because it's really interesting actually that different regions have different kind of like hooks and attractions and interest points. And so yeah, and I can also mention a little bit on my experience. So I'm originally from Turkey, and I lived and worked in Turkey for a while, and also in the UK and Germany, and I'm actually doing a little bit work with Netherlands at the moment. So in general, you know, Europe and the UK, and also while I was working in Turkey, that was the 40 plus regions across the world. So definitely a different tone of voices for lots of regions. Even when you think about it, for example, if you're distributing a content to China and Taiwan, it's quite unique and quite different. Like people assume that they're speaking the same language or they're like really close to each other. It's not like that.
And how did you come up with that decision? How did you get to know what the tones of voice should be for each region? Did you test out various different tones of voice and work out which one worked best, and it just happened to be different in different regions? Or
good question, actually. So we had our regional marketers in my previous company. So they were based in the regional locations, and they were kind of like guiding us in terms of, you know, like the general outline of how the content or the campaign should be. But other than that, it's definitely test and learn, because there's too much elements, there's too much variables in one report or one campaign that you can actually change and test it out. And to the one point, actually, Maria had a great point, where my experience in Turkey as well was similar in terms of content, and gating content was similarly working quite well, even so well. I mean, I can't even describe, but I think it might be a reason with the cultural differences as well, in kind of like different regions, as she said. Like Turkey is kind of transcontinental country. It's between Middle East and Europe, but also in the Middle Eastern region, people sometimes think as well those gated contents create more value or provides more value than the ungated content, which is quite available to all the people, and they feel like they're unique to actually receive those kind of contents. So that might be one reason, one cultural reason behind it. And there's like tons of different reasons and kind of like language points as well in terms of how to actually attract the audience in different regions. Whereas, for example, in Turkey, people don't really like reading lots of long stuff at the first hand. They wanna see the key facts and the summary. and they want to understand if that topic is, you know, like worth reading almost, and if not, they just like skip it. Otherwise, if you put the content just like all the way across the page directly, that might not work for lots of B2B companies. But in the UK, whereas we are actually testing and seeing like different content strategy in terms of, you know, like the length of the content, or the positioning of that content, or how to actually, you know, talk about the tone of voice, because Apadmi is where I'm working at the moment, is kind of like premium brand, and we're developing and working with developing softwares and mobile apps for companies that are huge in the market. So that's why decision makers and the target audience is kind of like speaking that language as well. Whereas our sub company TMC in the Netherlands have a medium to small size of companies in their hand, and they're kind of like working with different tone of voice and different hook points for actually attracting their ICPs as well. So yeah. But I'm really curious to hear from Maria as well about my question.
Should I answer now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So we produce content at global level, and then each territory, each region also, because we have research teams and offices in different countries. So for instance, an example, this Global Consumer Barometer is launched in 18 different countries around the world. And then the Global Barometer kind of, analyzes the data for the 18 countries, and it might say, okay, this is the trend. So we have, since 2020, 22 waves of the barometer. It's not always the same blocks of questions. Obviously, it started in the pandemic, so there at the beginning it was very much about understanding where consumers were and the changes of that time that seems like ages ago. And so we would have an analysis that's global. And for instance, you might have a specific topic, let's say people are choosing to, I don't know, change brands in CPG products. For instance, we identify this trend. And there might be a group of countries where this is more pronounced. So we can say, hey, this is the global trend driven by this group of countries, might be US, UK, for instance. So this would be the global analysis, and there's a global report, and it's launched, let's say, and shared with all our clients, etc. And it's also gated. But then for each of the countries, let's say our research team in Dubai will look at the countries that are regional countries within those 18, which is KSA and UAE, and they will produce a local report for the Middle East that's just includes this data and might have, for instance, the global totals for comparison. So for instance, if we have a specific topic that's of interest to the Middle East, we might want to know where the Middle East stands, for instance, on sustainability, because of COP being in November and being in Dubai. This sustainability has gained a lot of traction. So we see that in the region, people are surprisingly more concerned about sustainability than in other parts of the world. So it's things like this that, but then we might launch a report that's specific to the Middle East, a survey about shopping behavior around Ramadan and what people are planning to do. So we might do that a couple of months before Ramadan and then share that with our clients. And that's always the the goal. Our content is not just for lead generation. It's also for engaging our clients and saying, hey, you're with us, and every now and then we give you something of good value.
Yeah. Well, I think that gives pass, I think, to the another topic that I wanted to discuss with you, Avishek, that is very interesting, which is giving content for your community. And of course, you have a lot to tell us about community with the rise of community-driven marketing. So it would be great to listen how disciples see the role of community platforms, the role of content in community platforms, and how this is evolving in B2B marketing.
Yeah, definitely. For us, I think communities play a very important role. First of all, for research, obviously you need to reach a certain volume of community members for you to really leverage the data and the audience that you have to in terms of research. But also communities also help not only our customers. I think it's if you're adopting a full funnel strategy, right, from awareness all the way down to the retention, there is a place within our community for each of those sections. So what that does is we have clear segmentations of our audiences. We know, okay, these are potential customers, not now, but let's say 6 months or 10 months down the line. So one of the problems that I particularly faced when I joined Disciple was we were generating 2,000 odd leads, and these were not just content leads, etc. 1,700 of them were high intent leads. So people coming in, filling out their forms for demos or taking a free trial and so on and so forth. So out of them, let's say, even if we were converting 50 of them into customers, there was still good 1,800 people who were not qualified to buy at this point in time. But what that does not mean is that there's no intent to buy. So that's why many cases I went and we researched and saw what were those reasons. So some of them were not ready to buy immediately. Some of them did not have the budget. Some of them did not have the need. And at the same time, because our product has 3 or 4 tiers within it. So the more successful your community is, the bigger it gets, which means you need to move on to the next tier. So that's why I think from an upselling point of view as well, communities play a very important role. So how we utilize our audiences, we try and invite all of our leads into our community. Let's say if you are not ready, you don't have, let's say 500 members in your community. We tell you, okay, you can join our community. We will help you. We run regular webinars, courses, so on and so forth, which will help you to understand how you can build that audience for your community's success. Similarly, if I am a very small community and let's say my lifetime value is 5,000, I want you to succeed, because when you your community succeeds, your members volume go up. That means that you can actually go and get into the next year. So how do you, for those audiences, we actually provide specific courses into whatever pain points that is at that stage of the funnel, and so on and so forth. Even when you are our highest tier customers, you still have something to grow. How can you monetize more? How can you generate more revenue and so forth? So that really gives us a very clear picture of not only that group of people who are within our, let's say, HubSpot or Salesforce, etc., but it also gives us a very clear indication as to what people like them are going through their entire journey. At the same time, if we have a customer base of, let's say, 5,000, because we have such huge volume where we know what their stage they are in, we can actually go and interview them, survey them, to ask them, okay, what kind of content resonates with you? What kind of pain points you are facing? And that gives us a indication as to what the general market is looking for. Obviously, we need to analyze that. Okay, this is what they're saying. If you go ahead and look at search volume on Google Trends, etc., does that actually resonate with that? We also do external research as well to further validate that. But that sets a very customer-centric or a user journey-centric based approach.
It's almost like a collaborative marketing automation platform or something. It's like participating in their own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's two elements to communities. One is one-to-one, one-to-all, basically what our community managers are going there distributing, but they are also interacting with each other through threads. So if we want to go there and let's say do a search of, let's say I want to talk about this particular problem, I can see all the threads that those people are discussing. what it further enables us to do is speak the language that our customers speak. For me, I think that is one of the key areas of personalization, where you actually, it's something resonates more, something that I agree with all the other panelists here, that you need to speak not only their language, their tone, but if you can actually talk about their problems and provide a solution within how they talk about things, that sets you apart from, let's say, a generic content. And that is where I feel like with all the automation, etc., coming, AI, etc., coming in, that is where genuinely good content will set you apart from just another Google blog post and so on and so forth.
Yeah, interesting how the two concepts of regional nuances and also community marketing, everything is linked on data and data for personalization. Hannah, do you also use and leverage data to craft content that resonates with your audience? Tell us a little bit about how you use data.
Yeah, so I would say when it comes to utilizing data, it's important to be able to turn that data into information first, to be able to provide any value to the data that you have. And then from there, you can obviously analyze and provide any insights. The key thing for us is data allows us to kind of build a deeper understanding of the target audience, which then allows us to communicate effectively with them. So our approach is normally that strategies require a unique approach depending on the project, but then we would look to kind of take that data and information and making sure that our messaging is one that kind of mirrors the needs and desires of that audience. So to give that a little bit of context, because I understand that that might be slightly confusing. So for example, as I was saying, we work on major infrastructure projects. So if we were to take something like a new road or highway, then the instant thought is, okay, those people who drive on the road are the people we need to worry about. But then you then have the secondary layer of that actually there's the bus users who no longer can use their route to get to work. And then you'll have the kind of the people who think that this does not affect them until the work actually begins and they realize how frustrating this road closure actually is, who believe that that road is not going to affect them because they're not a cyclist, they're not a bus user, and they're not a road user. However, they are a small business, and now all of a sudden they can't get their deliveries for their local groceries to make their smoothies or whatever it may be, and they're impacted. But they didn't think about that because as far as they were aware, they weren't going to be driving up that road that day, so they thought that they were kind of away with that. And then the same with kind of individual users. So within the community, we have a lot of stakeholder engagement with residents for a lot of our projects. So again, similar type of thing. They may not be road users, but they may have deliveries coming their way that are then delayed a day or two, or potentially a week, depending on how long the project is kind of going on for. So we try to use data as many pinch points as possible. So we obviously deal with a consultation period ahead of large projects. Then we'll have we'll use that data. So there is going to be people who are frustrated. There is going to be people who know already what is going to annoy them. And we use that information to be able to kind of tailor the messaging and make sure that we're as clear as we possibly can be. Because at the end of the day, in a lot of instances, the project is going to go ahead, but it's about how do we mitigate and control that risk and keep stakeholders as happy as we possibly can. So yeah, definitely utilizing data every given opportunity, but making sure that we're making sense of that data and that it's representative of the audience. So not just looking at the obvious audience, but kind of digging a little bit deeper and figuring out.
How do you know what data you should gather? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I guess you've done it lots of times, but
yeah, so it is quite a difficult one in terms of it depends on the project. Our projects are so vastly different. I was going to mention it a little bit later on, but we actually have a tool called Communify that we use at Copper, which is something that's fairly unique. But it's more than just a data platform. It's actually the process that we use at Copper. and it allows us to kind of understand audiences, have that competitive advantage, and then be able to produce better strategies. So it's about taking that data to think about the hard to reach audiences. So it's a lot of stuff that will come out of kind of council related reports and data, and you know, and you just go to say something and you completely forget what it's called. Somebody's gonna have to help me out here, and then I'll start my
No
sentence
worries.
again.
Maybe
Do you know
it's-
the survey that goes out and it's like national
Census.
Census.
Yeah. Okay, so we use the census data as well. But within Communify, it breaks down communities and kind of geographical areas into much finer detail. So if you took a county as a whole, you may get that the majority of people in that area are potentially affluent, have high disposable income. So then if you were to tailor your communications based on that, then you would be missing out on a lot of your audience. So for example, if we've got a solar project or a wind farm, there'll obviously be the connection routes, but we really need to think about exactly how that affects every individual in that area. So whilst we may have pockets of really affluent individuals who maybe don't care that the bus route is being switched off for 3 weeks or diversion or adding to the route, we need to consider the communities that are also close by who may be of a smaller size, but they're really going to be affected by whatever the work is that's being carried out. So I think for us, it's about kind of getting into the granular detail of data rather than going at what we do a lot as marketers, which is stereotyping from kind of an overview, because that messaging is just not enough for us based on the types of projects that we work with.
It's really interesting that this is like your whole business, whereas for lots of other B2B marketers, doing that sort of research is something that we sort of fit in the margins.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting just to think whether there's any analogs or learnings that a B2B marketer could take from that. Because when you're selling into a business, you often have hidden communities that you don't think are going to be affected, like the CFO or the CTO or the head of CRM or something. You know, someone you're implementing a piece of software that is about this area, and then there's 5 other people that you discover actually have a really big influence on this. Maybe there are even people that could stop the project, but we just didn't know that they were going to be affected.
Yeah,
So,
I think
you
you
know,
often see that kind of approach as well when you come to kind of implement a new software in a business where you think it only affects you, but it's actually about how it integrates with all the other software that's already in existence. But actually, could this piece of software overtake other areas? So if your sales platform doesn't speak to your CRM database, what's the point? And it's a lot more clear cut in those B2B industries that are kind of sales or service focused, where there is kind of a tangible funnel of customers, whereas we don't have it quite as straightforward as that, I would say.
I think it's interesting that you're working the community as part of a project to understand that. Could be, you know, that could be, you know, in a perfect world, a marketer would have infinite budget and would be able to kind of do that sort of project, but for their prospects, to understand what are the hidden communities or hidden groups of people, hidden roles that will be affected by me trying to sell in, might be in a place to stop it, or at least veer it off course, or maybe cause churn in 2 years' time. And it's just interesting to think whether any of the kind of expert, you know, extreme levels of expertise that you have in that area could be used by marketers to try and, I don't know, how do you do that? You don't have a census as such, but
an ABM approach definitely allows you to get some light on the nuances of the accounts. Firat, you are using an ABM approach. Why don't you tell us your reflection on that?
Well, yeah. In terms of ABM approach, I think it's kind of different than what Hannah has in terms of, you know, like as you said, Hannah, like we have sales funnel and kind of like a one-to-one personalization opportunity in terms of that, you know, communication, whether that comes from client services or whether that comes from sales, business development. So apart from all the digital data has been collected, I think it's important to use kind of like those one-to-one interactions and any available information, using that into your strategy is important, especially if you are targeting a couple different industries, and if you're actually focusing on several industries and trying to get customer, trying to earn customer and build trust with those customers. Prospects, not customers, sorry. So yeah, in terms of that aspect, using an ABM strategy could work with the, of course, like if you're creating that content resonates with them, because, internally, we have kind of like a discussion going on with marketing and business development, and talking about, okay, these companies are actually interested with, developing mobile app, whereas some companies already have their apps and kind of more on focusing on optimizing them, or focusing on personalization, utilizing data in some areas, kind of like optimizing the app, what they have at the moment. So that really gives you the idea of actually creating a campaign and targeting different industries and different companies in their resonated perspective, rather than just going with the general content of, okay, I'm publishing this report, hope that interests you kind of approach. And you can go with further deep down, whether that's a loyalty or whether that's a specific version of loyalty inside that subheader as well. So that we use that alignment on the ABM strategy, and using those data in order to actually convert into valuable content and marketing assets, and creating campaigns accordingly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, let's go into the final topic, which is about the community engagement and how we choose the right platform to the success of our digital engagement. Avishek, you mentioned in our briefing call that mobile is crucial for community engagement. Why?
Yeah, I think mobile, first of all, people spend more hours, longer time on mobile phones than on desktops. So it's if you send someone an email, the good open rates would be around 20-25%. Whereas if you send a mobile notification, a general open rate for that or click through into that is 40-45%, which just goes on to show that how much more engaging a mobile app is. So at the same time, I think that's one of the factors. Other than that, yeah, people like to engage, and if it's mobile friendly, even on our website and majority of our websites, we do see better engagement on our mobile websites than on our desktop websites. So those two things usually give you an advantage in terms of having a better, especially if you have an app. People these days, until and unless it's a super B2B app, people usually spend more time on mobile apps. Let's say even for Google Ads, even HubSpot, they are also available on mobile these days. So there's a reason for that. So it's much more easier to use, and you have more options to engage them on a regular basis with push notifications and stuff like that to really engage them. So yeah, you have a better chance of attracting attention at the right time. Again, personalization is very important. You don't want to bombard them with push notifications for every small little thing. You need to understand, okay, this audience within our community, this is what they're looking for, and this is a piece of content that would resonate with them, or this is a contest, or this is something that would resonate with them. And that's when you send those notifications. And what we have seen is, again, if you're able to build hyper targeted push notifications as well, then you are more likely to get more clicks from those push notifications as well. So we have seen a very clear, we just bombard them with many, then you won't see a higher click-through rate as well. So yeah, those are some of the things that I have seen.
Brilliant. Maria, please tell us about your approach using LinkedIn, primarily for short-term campaigns. How do you think that fit in a sustained community engagement?
Well, yes. So because of our global reach, LinkedIn tends to be our go-to platform for advertising, and also because of the people we try to target, we see mixed results. It really depends on what we are sharing, what we are kind of promoting. So certain types of content work relatively well. Other things more, let's say, short-term focused, or when we are talking about specific methodologies that we are introducing in our platform, because we so we are a market research company, but we have our own platform for launching market research projects and our own panel. Um, so it really depends, and sometimes it's hard for us to actually um, understand where a campaign stood, if it worked or not, because of the visibility of some of the data, and this goes to legacy tech issues we are trying to solve at this very moment. So yeah, I mean, we rely on LinkedIn quite a bit, but on, let's say, so this is the let's say digital platforms, but I consider in-person events to be the other platform. So it connects with LinkedIn because it's also a small community, temporary small community that you generate an in-person event. And we do like events. We sponsor events that attract us, where our clients or potential clients might be. We sometimes partner with clients to present data. For instance, let's say last year there was an event about gaming, and we partnered with Sega to present a comprehensive study about the gaming landscape in the US and UK. So this is a type of thing we do a lot. You connect with other brands in the same space by joining up with one of them and presenting data that's very relevant to the topic of the event. In LATAM, and sometimes obviously these events are expensive to sponsor, and there's a certain level of involvement from our team in terms of producing this high level type of report. Another way of doing it, and we've tried this in Brazil. um, São Paulo is a really huge city, so it's like a country in its size, and so we have like a really good business community there. And what we decided to do is to try to create our own event, our own series of events, in-person events. We choose a topic, we invite speakers like you've done here, and we have an in-person event that's for, let's say, 50 people, with a really high-level panel of speakers with brands like, I don't know, Spotify, Google, Nike, Heineken, like different sectors. And we have like a chat, and we invite our clients and prospects, and it works really well. And it's our own event, so
that's a very good example of personalization, one-to-one, face-to-face. What could be more personalized than that? Well, thank you so much. We are coming to an end, and I think I would like to say, well, if you want to say something as well, you're very welcome. But one thing that stands clear, I think, that personalization is not a strategy; it's the future of B2B marketing, and data is definitely the key thing to engage with your community and create those meaningful connections. Thank you so much. I don't know if you want to say something, please, you're very welcome.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us.